Do you want it to be up or down?
Sorry?
Up.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
And how was the panel? It was incredible, the reaction of the fans.
That was amazing. Thank you, guys and girls, so much for that. I cannot tell you how much that means to me.
Okay, so jumping right into The Witcher, I think you have the same process of discovery as me, because I started with the games and then I fell in love with the books, and now I really enjoying the show. So how was your first experience in reading the book, and how long have you been a Witcher fan?
My first experience reading the book was fantastic. My first introduction to The Witcher was The Witcher games, and so I had that image in my head, but Sapkowski's writing paints a far more detailed picture, and it took me on a different journey altogether. And because I knew of the show's existence when I was reading the book, I could then try and picture how I was going to perform everything and how things were going to be different, and what things I were going to tie to my initial experience and then tie to the books as well. Mm-hmm. And so it was an interesting read for me, because the writing itself is fantastic. I went on an incredible emotional journey throughout, but also I got to kind of live it like I was going to play it as well, which was a lot of fun for me.
And what's your favorite short story from the first two books?
I think it's called A Shard of Ice. I think it's from the Sword of Destiny. It's where, I don't want to ruin anything for anyone who's reading the books, but it's where Geralt and Yennefer are seemingly happy. That really tore a hole in my heart.
Do you see yourself in Geralt, and how was the process of creating your version of the character?
I do see myself in Geralt a little bit. I won't go too deeply into the why and the how.
Yeah.
Probably best that people don't know.
How did you come up with your own version of the character?
It was not an intentional approach. With Lauren's vision, she wanted to bring the female characters to the fore and have Yennefer and Ciri's storyline start from the very beginning alongside Geralt's. For me, with the way it was written, I had to boil down Geralt's character to the essence of what it is, because there's less in the way of page time, let's call it. The character nuance and complexities have to be expressed in a different way. And so I wasn't deliberately trying to make him my own, but I was trying to make sure the character was as true to the book lore as possible while working within the framework of the show.
I know that Lauren met with Sapkowski. Did you met him already? How did he react to your casting as Geralt?
I met him very briefly on set one day. I was doing a big stunt. I think it was like a 15 to 20 foot fall through a floor, and I was focused on that. And the first thing he said to me was, "I didn't write this. This wasn't me. It's not my fault." and then I had to rush off and do the stunt. And by the time I'd finished, he was off doing more of a studio tour. So hopefully, I pray that he likes my representation of Geralt. Yeah. It's very important to me that I did his work justice, because that is where my heart lies.
You mentioned the stunts, and I gotta say the fight scenes are amazing. How did you come up with Geralt's fighting style?
We got to tell a very intricate story in the fight. For me, it's very, very important that the character exists within the action. Mm-hmm. It's important that what you see in the action is you're learning more about who the person is, who the character is. For example, in the first half of the fight, you see an aspect of Geralt's personality, which is probably how a lot of the world sees him. And in the second half of the fight, you see who Geralt is on the inside and who he wants to be despite these incredible powers he's been, I was going to say gifted, but it wasn't much of a gift, that he's been forced upon him. And then in the last part of that fight, you see that final piece of him which does what's necessary despite how much it may cause him personal grief. It's important that I do all of it. So including stunts, including acting, otherwise you're missing out on the performance of the character. This character is so important to me. I wouldn't let someone stand on a hill like a mile away. I'd say, no, that's got to be me walking down the hill. What if they walk differently? And it was just important to me that the character's always on screen.
Jumping to the tough questions. Speaking as yourself, Tris or Yennefer, as a fan of The Witcher?
As a fan of The Witcher, well, I can only speak for games, because that was my first introduction to the question. And I think when I was playing the games, this is a good way of avoiding actually any ownership of this. When I was playing the games, I chose Yennefer. It's just there was love there. The way the games went The story with Triss was powerful and something different, but the story with Yennefer is where Geralt's heart lay, I believe.
And so for my final question, being the guy that played both Superman and Geralt, who would win in a fair fight?
I think today is a good day to talk about Geralt de Rivia.
Okay, that's great. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.